It is hardly likely that 20th century man is called upon to discover truth that has never been discovered before. In the Christian tradition, as in all genuine traditions of mankind, the truth has been stated in religious terms, a language which has become well-nigh incomprehensible to the majority of modern men. Out of the whole of the Christian tradition, there is perhaps no body of teaching which is more relevant and appropriate to the modern predicament than the marvelously subtle and realistic doctrines of the four cardinal virtues: prudentia, justitia, fortitudo, and temperantia. Justice relates to truth, fortitude to goodness, temperance to beauty, while prudence in a sense comprises all three. The type of realism which behaves as if the true, the good, and the beautiful were too vague and subjective to be adopted as the highest aims of social or individual life, or were the automatic spin-off of the successful pursuit of wealth and power, has aptly been called crackpot realism. Everywhere people ask, what can I actually do? The answer is as simple as it is disconcerting. We can, each of us, work to put our own inner house in order. The guidance we need for this work cannot be found in science or technology, the value of which utterly depends on the ends they serve, but it can still be found in the traditional wisdom of mankind. Thus ends the epilogue, the close of E.F. Schumacher's most famous work, Small is Beautiful. It is a striking contrast to what one might expect from a modern economist, and it raises important questions. Where does this perspective come from? Why has it resonated with so many people? And what is Schumacher ultimately aiming at? At the origin of his thought lies a profound claim. Material prosperity is not a sufficient principle for a flourishing society. In other words, we need something more than make everyone wealthy as the guiding light for our communities and nations. To support this claim, Schumacher repeatedly argues, largely by way of quantitative analysis, how the indefinite growth of consumption threatens to overwhelm the Earth's capacity to provide for us. This key insight unveils a central tenet of his thought. Economics cannot be separated from metaphysics. Every science, he argues, must be rooted in a vision of the good. We need real wisdom, not just a more efficient economic system. He poses the question forcefully: what is the end goal of our economic system? Is it consumption? Is it GDP growth? Or is it human fulfillment? This greater question he terms meta-economics, writing, "The great majority of economists is still pursuing the absurd ideal of making their science as scientific and precise as physics, as if there was no qualitative difference between mindless atoms and men made in the image of God." For Schumacher, all goods, material or otherwise, are only meaningful if they serve the higher good, humanity in all its ordinary smallness. Growth is not intrinsically bad, but it cannot be allowed to blindly hurtle forward without regard for its impact on people and on the world. This is not merely a scientific or ecological point, but a deeply philosophical and spiritual one. Schumacher is clear about the spiritual stakes, often referencing his concept of Buddhist economics, as well as drawing on Christian thinkers to frame his critique of materialism, writing, "Insights of wisdom enable us to see the hollowness and fundamental unsatisfactoriness of a life devoted primarily to the pursuit of material ends, to the neglect of the spiritual. Such a life necessarily sets man against man and nation against nation, because man's needs are infinite and infinitude can be achieved only in the spiritual realm, never in the material." At the heart of Schumacher's framework is the principle of subsidiarity, that decisions should be made at the lowest competent level possible. In other words, systems should be scaled to human size. Originally an atheist, Schumacher's spiritual perspective evolved over time. He was deeply influenced by Buddhism, Christian mysticism, and Catholic social teaching. In 1971, he converted to Roman Catholicism, drawing inspiration from Pope Leo XIII's encyclical Rerum Novarum, where subsidiarity is developed as a central theme. Subsidiarity, Schumacher argues, is not merely a moral principle, but a practical and natural one. It improves a system's ability to adapt quickly and well, allowing for immediate feedback and a higher degree of accountability. By keeping systems small, they become more humane, more adaptable, and ultimately wiser. Schumacher was also deeply critical of the chronic waste and systemic inefficiency created by modern industrial practices. He saw the system as built on solutionism, not stewardship. He argued that we should thoughtfully develop our technologies rather than impose the same industrial techniques indiscriminately across the globe. Instead of mass production, Schumacher called for production by the masses. Intermediate technologies, tools that empower rather than simply replace, can help the poor produce, the young grow, and the elderly remain active. Part of the reason Schumacher takes this view is that he sees work itself as therapeutic. Work is not merely a means to an end, but a formative experience for the human soul. An economy should prioritize meaningful work and opportunity over mere production and output. Work should engage both the hand and the spirit. Large corporations, Schumacher argues, often crush the dignity of individuals and communities. They are too large to serve the people they employ and the communities they affect. His solution is a kind of soft collectivization, not nationalization but localization, anchored in transparency, subsidiarity, and virtue. At its worst, Schumacher critiques, capitalism reduces all quality to quantity. Indeed, along the lines of Joseph Pieper, Schumacher critiques both capitalism and socialism as insufficient systems that in practice often end up in the same place. Everything, beauty, virtue, health, education, will get flattened into numbers. But economics, Schumacher counters, should be rooted in something richer, pointing even to the Beatitudes as a model for what society should value. He argues that knowledge is the best form of aid to the underdeveloped nations. Thus, better forms of knowledge, wisdom, are more valuable than mere technical capacity. A thoughtful approach to aid is crucial for the long-term and sustainable development. Ultimately, Schumacher hammers home the point that we must know people if we wish to design systems that serve them. That means building intellectual infrastructure, not just delivering material aid. If we want to help others, we need long-term, iterative development, beginning where people are, not where we think they should be. At its core, small is beautiful is a call to virtue. No system, capitalist, socialist, or otherwise, can function without virtuous people. Prudence, humility, and a love of truth must guide our politics, economics, and technology. Growth itself is not evil, but growth without limits, without wisdom, without grace, is not worth the sacrifices needed to ensure it. In a world that often races toward bigness, small is beautiful offers a different path, not backward, but more inward and downward, toward the roots of meaning, community, and the truly good life. With all of that said, I'd like to close by revisiting the quote we opened this video with, drawn from the epilogue of Small is Beautiful. Everywhere people ask, what can I actually do? The answer is as simple as it is disconcerting. We can, each of us, work to put our own inner house in order. The guidance we need for this work cannot be found in science or technology, the value of which utterly depends on the ends they serve. But it can still be found in the traditional wisdom of mankind.
Our children are brought up that what they really admire are all sorts of mechanical contraptions. And if they hear for the first time a statement like a rocket that takes you to the moon is very, very crude compared with this mosquito or that hen, I think you're teasing them. It has never occurred to them to look at it this way. So they've got everything upside down. What we can fully understand, what we can make ourselves, we don't have to have any reverence for. We can replicate it. But what we can't make, that we have to treat as a marvel, as the marvel, the miracle it is.